Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I'll be going through PSLE 2024 question number 14 is MCQ. So three types of fruit PQR will drop from the top of a building. At the same time, the distance of each fruit landed away from the building was being measured. The results are being shown. As you can see from here, R landed the furthest, P landed the nearest. Okay, so imagine you have a building over here, then you probably will see P, Q, and R. Okay, their distance away from the building was being measured. Okay, this is what it actually means in this experiment. Okay, so basically they throw the fruit down from here, then it lands here, then for R it lands here. R landed the furthest, P landed the nearest. This is something that I can conclude. So what cannot be concluded? So those that you cannot conclude, you will select. Okay, those that you can conclude, you cannot select. So for example, I can conclude, what can I conclude from this this graph? Okay, in this case, I can conclude R travel the furthest, P travel the nearest, and in this case, right, they never tell you what type of fruit is it. It could be most likely a wing fruit that is dispersed by wind, so you have the wing-like structure, or it could be even a splitting fruit. Okay, where the fruit is dispersed by splitting action, and then from there they find out how far they can disperse from the parent plant, or it can be the mass of the fruit. So there are actually a lot of variable that they could be investigating, but it was not stated. So it could be the type of dispersal. Okay, in this case, most likely wind or splitting. Wind or splitting. They did not mention. Okay, it could also be mass of fruit. Okay, they did not mention. They just tell you three types of fruit. They never tell you what type of specific characteristics each fruit has. This was not being mentioned. So you have to know that it can be this, or it can even be this. So what can you conclude? Okay, you can only conclude R is carried furthest by the air, followed by Q, then P, which fall almost straight down. Okay, so that means R travel the furthest. Okay, followed by Q and P. Or it could also be in the idea of splitting. Okay, R travel the furthest horizontal distance, followed by Q, then followed by P, which falls down straight down. These are the things that I can conclude. So these are the things that I will not choose, but I want to choose something that I cannot conclude. Okay, P is being dispersed by animal. Okay, this is something that I cannot conclude. Okay, because in this case, right, okay, the idea is that they will just drop from the building. Okay, it could be wind or splitting. Okay, and maybe not dispersal. So I cannot conclude that P is dispersed by animal. It could be by wind or by splitting. Or basically, this statement alone, you cannot tell how the fruit is being dispersed just by this graph alone. Okay, therefore, it gives us no information whether is it carried by animal. Therefore, there's no evidence to conclude whether P is dispersed by animal. So that's why you cannot conclude, you put a tick. I cannot say so. Basically, is I cannot say so, I put a tick. So this question is you have to read carefully. Okay, so for B, right, Q and R could have wing-like structure. Yes, they could have, but they could also be very light. Okay, it could be the case that R is even lighter than Q, so it travels even a further horizontal distance away from the building. So in this case, right, it may not have wing-like structure, it may not have, or you can't conclude that they have wing-like structure. You cannot conclude, so you put a tick. So because lighter fruit do not require wing-like structure to be carried by wind, so even though they travel a significant distance as compared to P, indicating that they probably could have carried by wind, or they could have carried by be dispersed by splitting, I'm really not sure because it's not being indicated. Okay, so while light is being another characteristics for fruits that is being dispersed by wind, even though they do not have wing-like structure, so therefore we cannot conclude, because in this case they could be testing the mass of the seeds in this case. So I cannot conclude, I put a tick, I'll select. So with now A and B will be the correct answer. So we just have to check for C. Okay, Q will travel further than R, okay, when there is more wind. Okay, so in this case, right, because we are not testing with or without wind between Q and R, so there is actually no evidence to indicate that this can be or this could be true. No evidence. So this is why you cannot conclude Q will travel further than R when there's wind. Okay, so you also choose this. So the idea is that because there is no evidence to conclude whether the structure of fruit queue will allow a greater dispersal distance in the presence of wind. That's why we will not choose it, because we just don't have that information. In this case. So in this case, A, B, and C is the correct answer. So this answer is number 4. So let me put the analysis down over here so that you can actually have a good read about it. So there's just a little bit more elaboration. With that, thank you very much.